just to be clear, when you wrote this book, you weren't out there to blast white people.
No, that was the
were you?
accusation. That was the accusation that I got.
Right, and you dealt with a tremendous amount of criticism back then, yet
Yeah.
almost everything that you talked about, you wrote about, you called out,
Yeah.
has now come true.
It is pretty satisfying and disappointing to realize that there are some things that I said that have come true. So one of the more controversial chapters was actually my chapter on the emerging church. Now, for some of you who's listening now, say, what is the emerging church? That was my point. So 10 years ago, everything in Christian media, all the Christian publishers were talking about the emerging church is the next big thing. It's going to change the church. And what I pointed out was actually it's almost all white. It's almost all upper middle class. It's all kind of sequestered in this suburban, Western, upper middle class white enclave. And people were pushing back and saying, oh, you don't know us, you don't understand us, you don't know who we are. And I said, yes, I do. This is a movement that is so centered on whiteness that it will probably go away in the next couple of years or so. And that actually is exactly what happened. The emerging church as a movement pretty much was a blip on the radar and has pretty much disappeared. And Mike, I'm not taking a victory lap about that, but I want to say, well, what was the critique that I was offering there, saying, the problem with the emerging church is not even what they're saying. That was problematic as well, but not quite what they were saying, but who they were. They were a group of white people saying to the rest of society, this is the way you should be. And that wasn't going to fly anymore. And that's what I'm arguing about going ahead. It can't be just a group of white people saying, this is what the world is, and this is how you should understand the world. It has to be a more multi-ethnic vision, because in 10 years, the demographic changes that I had talked about, those have actually come into fruition already. We're seeing the demographic changes.
The majority-minority.
Yeah, so I had predicted, and this was based on data, I wasn't just randomly pulling out numbers, that the prediction was that by 2042, the majority of Americans will be of non-European descent, non-white. So the whites would be an ethnic minority in that it's under 50%. And what I had said was that maybe 10 years before then, the church would be ethnically diverse in the evangelical church. The last numbers that we saw coming out of a research institute in Washington, D.C., PRRI, is that right now 17% of Americans consider themselves to be white evangelicals, but 16% of Americans consider themselves to be evangelicals of color. So in the year 2020, we're already at 50-50 or close to 50-50. Now, what's the problem, of course, is the white evangelicals get all the attention of like, oh, that's the voting bloc that's going to win the election, and the evangelicals of color, which is almost at the same numerical level as white evangelicals. So what I had predicted was we're coming very rapidly on a place where the majority of evangelicals, the majority of Christians are going to be people of color and not white. And so that change is already here 10 years and earlier than actually I think I had even expected it to happen.